new.
I'm with the Gay Liberation Network, and a van load of us came down from Chicago today because we support Bradley Manning. He has done a signal service to not only people in this country, but people around the world. We've had alleged patriots say that he endangered lives, and yet they haven't been able to point to a single life endangerment. In fact, Bradley Manning has saved lives. He is partly responsible for the Arab Spring that we've seen by exposing the dirty dealings of the United States government with a whole variety of North African dictators that the United States has supported. And he's helped us out. We are also concerned in the Gay Liberation Network because we suspect that given the historic homophobia and sexism of the military, that the fact that Mr. Manning is a gay man, that he was perhaps singled out for especially bad treatment for that reason, as well as being an alleged WikiLeaks leaker. So we felt, as a gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender organization, a real need to be down here. We support not only rights for gay people, but also we can't ask for solidarity for our struggles as gay people unless we are in solidarity with the peoples of the world. And what Mr. Manning has done has been a huge aid to freedom in the world if he actually did what they accuse him of, and we salute that.
What do you think the root of this homophobia in the military is?
Well, I think when you have this power imbalance, the United States imposing its control on the world, which is, I mean, this country spends as much on its military as the rest of the world combined, that there is a lot of oppression that comes with military conquest and domination, and racism and sexism and homophobia follow in its wake. If you see this in brutal police departments, that the police departments that are, basically imposing an unequal, I should say, preserving an unequal setup in society, they're going to inculcate the worst values of that society. And the military, at the end of the day, defends the very unequal society and country that we live in. The United States lords itself over much of the rest of the world directly against the interests of the world. I mean, the vast majority of the peoples of the world are opposed to the Afghanistan occupation, opposed to the Iraq invasion. The United States sets itself against that. And so I don't think it's any accident that those undemocratic values bleed over into other forms of oppression, such as racism and homophobia.
Oh, because the military establishment as an institution is a hierarchical institution that's already top-down.
And it's aimed at preserving the status quo, that is, United States domination over huge swaths of the world's population against the explicit wishes of those populations.
Obama's already said that Bradley Manning is guilty of breaking the law, so what do you think about his chances of having a fair trial?
I think that any military court in the first place in this country is a kangaroo court, irrespective of President Obama's comments. I think the fact that a constitutional law scholar from the University of Chicago could make such an outrageous statement shows President Obama's contempt for justice for Bradley Manning. I mean, his own press secretary said that the conditions that Mr. Manning was being held at on the East Coast, Quantico, were outrageous, and for that, did President Obama say, oh, well, that's okay? No, he fired that press secretary. And as we've seen, as this president has supported extraordinary rendition, has supported killing of peoples abroad, has supported drone attacks, has supported a string of dictators around the world, this president has as much contempt for human rights as the previous president. And I think it's time for the peace movement to wake up and realize that if we're going to really be for peace and justice, we have to be against presidents both Democratic and Republican. And frankly, this is is a lesson that we should have learned from the anti-Vietnam War movement. I mean, being from Chicago, we learned what Democratic presidents such as LBJ really stood for, despite their rhetoric, and unfortunately the peace movement has had to relearn that lesson. I would say, don't get fooled by the 2012 hype. Yes, the Republicans will put up some bozo who is to the right of Attila the Hun, but the point is the Democrats will have President Obama running with different rhetoric, but basically the same imperial policies. I mean, there is a continuity between the current regime and the Bush regime that all of us loathed, that few can deny.
The PBS Frontline special published Bradley Manning's Facebook wall and the associated gay political groups that he's a part of, or that he supported, perhaps. How do you think his sexuality plays into the public perception of him?
Well, I think at this point, unfortunately, most people don't know who Bradley Manning is. I talked with people in Moscow recently, and there were internationals from around Europe there. They all know who Bradley Manning was, but people in this country, I think it's the job of the peace movement to tell who Bradley Manning is. And from what I know of Mr. Manning, he was a victim of the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy that again was introduced to us by a Democratic Party president, and we still aren't rid of. It was an additional pressure on Manning, but you think of the torture that Private Manning was subjected to in terms of the stripping, the humiliation. This is the sort of torture and humiliation that the United States troops used against people in Baghdad, because they thought, well, if we humiliate them with homophobically suggestive tortures, dressing in women's clothing and so forth, we can so degrade them that they will confess to things that they didn't do. The United States has already set up a situation in which Private Manning, whatever trial he gets, is going to be an unfair one. President Obama's comments, the torture and isolation that Private Manning has been through. This man is a hero. He has been the Daniel Ellsberg of our generation. He's exposed U.S. war crimes. We should salute him for that, if indeed he says that's what he did. Instead, he's being vilified, and it's just outrageous. We know, my aunt actually had a big part in the Daniel Ellsberg case way back in the day, and she told me about the support that Mr. Ellsberg got. That's what we as a peace movement have a responsibility to build today, because were it not for the peace movement of that day, Daniel Ellsberg would be facing charges of treason, etc., as unfortunately Bradley Manning may be.
So you think that Private Manning's motivation was not that he was upset about Don't Ask, Don't Tell, that he had wider motivations?
I think that what we have to say right now is the evidence is almost nearly speculative. We have it only on the word of an individual who is a hacker and admitted liar that the chat logs that Bradley Manning allegedly had with him were indeed genuine. We have it on the word of the government, any number of other alleged pieces of evidence. We can't fall into the trap of saying this or that definitely happened. The man deserves a fair trial. The problem is that he's not going to get one in the United States. I think we need to be saying that now, before the trial even begins, that the United States as a country is not fit to try someone that's alleged to have leaked the WikiLeaks transgressions. I mean, if those leaks proved anything, it showed the utter debauchery of the United States government in terms of its contempt for human rights and for the rule of law. They don't give a damn about people in this country. They don't give a damn about the peoples of the world. They don't give a damn about justice. They're not going to give Bradley Manning justice. That's why we need to focus on the demand, free Bradley Manning, rather than a fair trial for Bradley Manning, because frankly, this government has proven utterly incapable of that.
New.